Sometimes life gets quiet as we get older. The kids have grown, the house feels a little bigger than it used to, and the pace of the world outside seems to keep speeding up. But let me tell you something. Just because the calendar says you're in your 70s or 80s doesn't mean you've stopped being remarkable. In fact, if you're still doing some of the things I'm about to talk about, you might just be one of those rare gems that makes people stop and say, wow. So today's video is all about celebrating you. We're diving into 8 habits, activities, and attitudes that not everyone your age is doing. But if you are, well, you're truly one of a kind. And trust me, these aren't things like running marathons or climbing mountains unless that's your thing, of course. No, these are everyday choices, some big, some small, that show you're still fully alive, engaged, and curious about life. Now, before we jump in, I want to remind you, this isn't about comparing yourself to others. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses or the Jennifers or the Jims, for that matter. This is about recognizing the strength, wisdom, and vitality you carry with you every single day. So whether you're nodding along thinking, oh yeah, I do that, or maybe raising an eyebrow going, I haven't thought of that in years, that's okay too. Either way, you're here, and that means you're open to something new. And that's what keeps us young at heart. All right, let's start with something simple, yet incredibly powerful. 1. You're still learning something new. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you learned something completely new? Not just brushing up on old skills or rereading your favorite book, but really diving into something unfamiliar? Maybe you took a class, online or in person, picked up a new hobby, or even tried a different route on your daily walk just to see what was around the corner. Learning isn't just for school or work. It's for life. And folks who keep learning, keep growing. Think about it. When you learn something new, your brain perks up. Your curiosity kicks in. You feel more connected to the world around you. And honestly, it's a lot of fun. I remember talking to a friend of mine who's in her early 70s, and she told me she decided to take an online photography course. She said she never thought she'd be editing photos on her laptop, but now she looks forward to it every week. Her confidence has grown. She's met other students from all over the world, and she started taking pictures of her garden that she shares with the family. That's the power of learning something new. It opens up whole new chapters in life. So whether it's learning how to use your phone's camera better, trying out a cooking class, or finally figuring out how to stream movies without asking your grandkids for help, go ahead and give it a shot. There's no age limit on curiosity, and every time you learn something new, you're showing the world, and yourself, that you're still full of potential. 2. You make time for friends, even if it's just a cup of tea. Okay, so next up is something that might seem obvious, but hear me out. You're still making time for friends, even if it's just a quick phone call, a cup of tea with a neighbor, or meeting someone for a walk through the park. As we get older, life can get quieter. People move away, routines change, and sometimes it's easier to stay home than to reach out. But staying connected with others is one of the most important things we can do for our hearts, our minds, and our overall happiness. Think about it. When you spend time with friends, you laugh more. You share stories, swap advice, and sometimes just sit together in comfortable silence. Those moments matter. They keep us grounded and remind us that we're not alone, even when life feels lonely. I'll never forget visiting my uncle who lives alone since my aunt passed a few years ago. He used to be very social, but after she was gone, he started spending more and more time by himself. Then one day, he joined a local senior center just to try it out. Now he plays cards twice a week, goes on group outings, and even started volunteering once a month. He told me recently, I didn't realize how much I missed that connection until I got back into it. And honestly, he looks 10 years younger, not just because he's active, but because he's engaged. So don't underestimate the power of friendship. Even small gestures, like calling a friend you haven't spoken to in a while or inviting someone over for a slice of pie, can make a world of difference. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. And if you're still doing this, you're doing something very special indeed. 3. You're taking care of yourself, body and soul. All right, let's talk about self-care. Now, I know that word gets thrown around a lot these days, but it's especially important as we age. And no, I don't mean expensive spa treatments or fancy wellness retreats, though if that's your thing, more power to you. Self-care, at its core, is about honoring your body and your spirit in ways that make you feel good. Maybe you're still eating healthy meals, even if it's just for one. Or perhaps you stretch every morning, take your vitamins, or go for regular checkups. These are all acts of self-respect. When you take care of your body, you're telling yourself, I matter. My health matters. But self-care also includes feeding your soul. Do you still enjoy reading? Listening to music that moves you? Taking time to pray, meditate, or simply sit quietly and reflect? These are just as vital as physical health. They keep your inner flame burning bright. I remember a woman I met at a community event who told me she starts each morning with a short prayer and a gratitude journal. She said it helps her focus on the good things, even on tough days. That's self-care with purpose. It's not extravagant, but it's deeply meaningful. And here's the beautiful part. When you take care of yourself, you're better able to take care of others too. Whether it's helping out with the grandkids, supporting a neighbor, or just being present for a friend, your own well-being makes all the difference. So if you're still prioritizing your health, physically, emotionally, spiritually, you're doing something extraordinary. And believe me, the world needs more people like you. Now, while we're on the subject of caring for ourselves, there's another habit that often gets overlooked, especially as we grow older. Now, let's keep going. You know what I love most about this stage of life? It's not just about slowing down. It's about living fully, with intention and grace. And that brings me to another one of those rare and remarkable habits. For you still find joy in the little things. Let me ask you something. Do you still notice the sunrise? Or maybe you smile when you hear birdsong in the morning. Perhaps you get a little thrill when your favorite song comes on the radio, or you take pride in how your garden looks after a long season of tending it. You see, as we grow older, sometimes the big thrills of life become fewer and farther between. But that doesn't mean joy disappears. It just changes shape. It becomes quieter, subtler, but no less powerful. Think about it. When you were younger, happiness might have come from promotions, parties, or big milestones. Now, it might be found in a handwritten letter from a grandchild, a perfect cup of coffee, or the way the light filters through the curtains just right on a lazy afternoon. I remember visiting my neighbor Edna a few weeks ago. She's in her late 70s and has always had a beautiful garden. As we sat outside, sipping lemonade and chatting, she pointed out a hummingbird hovering near her flowers. Her face lit up like a kid seeing snow for the first time. She said, "Isn't it magical how they just appear like that?" And you know what? She was absolutely right. That moment was small, but it was full of wonder. Finding joy in the little things isn't just a nice idea. It's a superpower. It means you haven't lost your sense of awe. It means you're still present, still noticing, still appreciating life's quiet beauty. And honestly, people who do that tend to carry a kind of peace and contentment that others can feel, even without knowing why. So if you're still stopping to smell the roses, or the freshly baked bread, or the scent of rain on pavement, you're doing something truly special. Don't ever underestimate the power of simple pleasures. They're often the ones that bring the deepest satisfaction. 5. You speak your mind, but listen first. All right, let's shift gears a bit. This next point is one that might surprise you, but I think it's incredibly important and increasingly rare. You see, folks in their 70s and 80s today grew up in a different time. There was more respect for elders, more patience in conversation, and more value placed on wisdom earned through years of living. And while times have changed, one thing remains true: your voice still matters. What I'm talking about here is speaking your mind, not in a loud or argumentative way, but with clarity, confidence, and kindness. It's about being willing to share your thoughts, your experiences, and yes, even your opinions, without shrinking back or feeling like you don't belong in the conversation anymore. And just as importantly, you listen, truly listen, not just waiting for your turn to speak, but hearing what others are saying, asking questions, showing curiosity about younger generations, about new ideas, about how the world is changing. There's something so powerful about someone who's lived a long life and still wants to learn from others. It shows humility. It shows openness. And above all, it shows strength. I'll never forget sitting at a family gathering where my cousin's teenage daughter was sharing some concerns about school and friendships. My uncle, who's well into his 80s, didn't offer advice right away. Instead, he leaned in, nodded, asked thoughtful questions, and only then offered a story from his own youth that helped put things in perspective. Everyone at the table listened, not because he demanded attention, but because they knew he had something worth hearing. If you're still willing to speak up when it matters, and just as importantly, willing to listen when it's needed, you're contributing something invaluable to every conversation. And trust me, people notice. They may not always say it, but they appreciate it deeply. So far, we've talked about some of the truly special things many of you are still doing, even as you reach your 70s and 80s. We started with learning something new, staying connected with friends, and taking care of both body and soul. Then we moved on to finding joy in the little things and speaking your mind while still listening with an open heart. And now, we're getting to the final stretch. These last few habits might not seem like much at first glance, but if you're still doing them, you're part of a very rare group indeed. Let's keep going. 6. You still set goals for yourself. Okay, let's talk about goals. Now, when most people think of setting goals, they picture someone in their 20s or 30s planning a career path or buying a home. But here's the truth. Goal setting doesn't stop just because you retire or celebrate another birthday. In fact, having something to look forward to, even small, personal goals, can be one of the most energizing parts of life. Whether it's learning to knit that scarf you've been eyeing, planning a trip to visit family, or even training for a charity walk, setting goals gives us purpose. It keeps us moving forward, even when life feels like it's slowing down around us. I remember talking to a woman named Mabel who was in her early 80s. She told me she decided to start watercolor painting after seeing her granddaughter do it during a visit. At first, she thought, "Oh, I'm too old to pick up something like that." But then she bought a beginner's kit online and gave it a try. A year later, she had painted a whole series of local landscapes and even sold a few pieces at a community art show. And you know what she said? "It made me feel like I was 16 again, nervous, excited, and full of possibility." That's the magic of setting goals. It reminds us that we're still growing, still capable, still alive. And honestly, isn't that what life's all about? So whether it's reading more books this year, reconnecting with an old hobby, or even starting a journal to write down your stories for your family, you're doing something beautiful. You're giving yourself something to strive for, and that's a powerful thing at any age. 7. You give back, even when you don't have to. All right, next up is something that might not get enough attention, but it's incredibly meaningful. You give back, not because you have to, but because you want to. Maybe you volunteer at a local food pantry, help out at your church, or spend time mentoring younger folks in your community. Or perhaps your giving looks a little quieter, like helping a neighbor carry groceries, offering advice to a friend who's struggling, or simply sharing a kind word when someone needs it most. Whatever form it takes, giving back is one of those quiet superpowers that makes the world better and makes your own life richer too. You see, there's something deeply fulfilling about knowing you've made a difference, even in small ways. It connects us to others, reminds us that we matter, and gives our days a sense of meaning beyond ourselves. I once met a man named Henry who used to teach high school English. After he retired, he started volunteering at a literacy program, helping adults learn to read. He told me, "I used to think I was done teaching, but now I realize I was never really teaching subjects. I was teaching people, and that doesn't stop just because I'm older." Isn't that beautiful? Teaching people, helping others, making a difference. That's legacy in action. And if you're still giving back in whatever way you can, you're part of a special group. Because not everyone does. Some people pull back, thinking they've given enough already. But you're still reaching out. And that makes you truly remarkable. 8. You still believe in love, and let yourself be loved. All right, friends. This last one might bring a tear to your eye, or maybe just a soft smile. Because it's about something that runs deeper than any checklist or list of accomplishments. You still believe in love, and you let yourself be loved. Now, I don't mean romantic love, though that can certainly be part of it. No, I mean the broader, deeper kind of love, the kind that says, I am worthy of affection, connection, and care. Even when life has taken its toll, even when you've lost people you love, even when your body doesn't move quite like it used to, there's a quiet strength in allowing yourself to be loved. It means you haven't shut the world out. You haven't stopped believing in the goodness of others. You haven't stopped seeing the beauty in relationships, whether it's with family, friends, or even strangers who become dear to you. I remember visiting a retirement home years ago where I met a woman named Ruth. She was in her late 80s and had lost her husband decades earlier. But every week, she'd sit in the common room and chat with other residents, play piano for sing-alongs, and always make sure everyone felt included. When I asked her why she did it, she looked at me and said, because love is all we leave behind in the end. And I'm not ready to stop giving mine away just yet. Her words stayed with me, and they remind me that love isn't just something we receive, it's something we choose to share over and over again. So if you're still opening your heart, still accepting kindness from others, still letting people, and even when life has taught you that loss is real, you're doing something extraordinary. Because love doesn't fade with age. If anything, it deepens. My friends, if you've made it this far, and especially if you recognized yourself in any of these 8 things, you are truly one of a kind. You're not just aging gracefully. You're living fully. You're showing the world that wisdom, curiosity, connection, and love don't disappear with time. They grow stronger. And I hope this video reminded you of something important. You matter. Your presence matters. Your voice, your experiences, your kindness, it all leaves an imprint on the people around you. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these points resonated with you the most. Or maybe you've got a habit or tradition that makes you feel alive and engaged. Share it. Let's inspire each other. Don't forget to hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe so you never miss another video like this one. Because we've got more conversations ahead about life, joy, growth, and everything in between. And before I go, I just want to say, you're never too old to feel young again. Keep learning, keep laughing, keep loving, and above all, keep being you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.